Chapter 1. The Funeral. The November rain hammered against the black umbrellas like accusations. Andrew Ellison stood at his daughter's graveside, watching the mahogany casket descend into the earth, and felt his world collapse inward. Emma, his brilliant, spirited 16-year-old daughter, gone. He'd been a structural engineer for 20 years, calculating load-bearing capacities and stress points, but nothing in his training had prepared him for this kind of breaking. The kind that happened inside your chest, silent and total. Lillian stood across from him, her face hidden behind a black veil. They hadn't spoken since the hospital, not really. She'd been ice since Emma's death 3 days ago, the sudden cardiac arrest that had stolen their daughter during her afternoon nap. The doctors said it was a congenital heart defect. Rare, undetectable, fatal. Andrew had carried that guilt like a stone. His family had a history of heart issues. His father had died young from a coronary event. He'd given Emma that weakness, that ticking time bomb in her chest. Mr. Ellison? The funeral director's voice was soft. The reception is prepared at the house whenever you're ready. Andrew nodded, unable to speak. Curtis Olson, his best friend since college, gripped his shoulder. Take your time, brother. The mourners began to disperse, their condolences hollow and awkward. Andrew stood there, rain soaking through his suit, staring at the fresh earth that covered his daughter. He remembered teaching Emma to ride a bike in their driveway, her laughter when she finally got it, the way she turned back to him and shouted, "Dad, did you see?" He'd seen. He'd always seen her. Andrew. Lillian's voice cut through his grief like glass. He looked up to find her standing 3 feet away, her veil lifted, her face hard and beautiful and completely foreign to him. After 18 years of marriage, he was staring at a stranger. "We need to talk," she said. "Now." Curtis stepped forward. "Lillian, maybe this isn't the time. Stay out of this, Curtis." Her green eyes were chips of ice. She thrust a manila envelope at Andrew. "I'm filing for divorce." The words didn't register at first. They were sounds without meaning, incompatible with the moment. "What?" "You heard me." Lillian's voice rose, shrill and accusing. "I want out. I want out of this marriage, out of this sham, out of everything." Andrew felt Curtis's hand tighten on his shoulder, anchoring him. "Lillian, our daughter we just buried. She died because of you." The scream tore out of her, primal and vicious. Several mourners who hadn't yet left turned to stare. "Your genetics. Your family's defective genes. I begged you not to have children, but you insisted, and now she's dead." The accusation hit him like a physical blow. Andrew staggered back a step, his mind reeling. He had insisted on children. Lillian had been ambivalent, focused on her career in pharmaceutical sales, but he'd wanted a family. He'd promised her it would be perfect. And now Emma was in the ground. "Sign the papers," Lillian said, her voice dropping to something cold and final. "I've already moved your things out of the house. Don't contact me except through lawyers." She turned on her heel and walked away, her black dress stark against the gray day. Andrew stood there, the envelope in his hands, the rain mixing with tears he couldn't remember starting. Curtis finally spoke, his voice tight with anger. "What the hell was that?" Andrew opened the envelope with numb fingers. Divorce petition. Irreconcilable differences. She was claiming emotional distress, seeking the house, half his pension, spousal support. The papers had been prepared before the funeral. Maybe before Emma had even died. "I don't understand," Andrew whispered. "We were happy. We were. But had they been?" He forced himself to think back through the last year. Lillian had been distant, working late frequently, her pharmaceutical conference trips stretching longer and longer. She'd stopped touching him, stopped laughing at his jokes, stopped asking about his day. He'd attributed it to stress, to Emma's teenage challenges, to the normal ebb and flow of long marriage. He'd been blind. "Come on," Curtis said gently. "Let's get you out of here." Andrew let himself be led to Curtis's truck. As they drove away from the cemetery, he looked back at the small tent over Emma's grave, the flowers already wilting in the rain. He'd lost his daughter, and apparently, he'd lost his wife long before that. What he didn't know yet was that he was about to lose everything else, and then take it all back with interest. Chapter 2. The Aftermath. Andrew moved into an extended-stay hotel near downtown, a sterile box with a kitchenette and a view of the highway. Curtis had offered his spare room, but Andrew needed to be alone, needed to sit with his grief without witnesses. The first week was a blur. He took leave from his job at Morrison & Associates, where he'd spent the last decade designing commercial buildings. His boss, Alan Hill, had been understanding. "Take all the time you need, Andrew. Family first." But there was no family anymore. The divorce proceedings moved with brutal efficiency. Lillian's lawyer was aggressive, painting Andrew as a neglectful husband who'd put his career ahead of his family, whose genetic negligence had killed their daughter. It was a narrative designed to maximize her settlement, and it was working. Andrew's lawyer, a sharp woman named Ramona Baker, tried to fight back. "This is scorched earth," she told him during their second meeting. "She's going for everything. The house, your retirement accounts, even seeking compensation for pain and suffering. I've never seen anything like this." Andrew barely listened. He signed whatever Ramona put in front of him. What did money matter? What did any of it matter? But on the 9th day after Emma's funeral, something shifted. Andrew was sorting through the boxes Curtis had retrieved from his house. Lillian had made good on her threat and removed all his belongings. Most of it was clothes and books, things that held no emotional weight. But at the bottom of one box, he found Emma's laptop. His hands shook as he opened it. The laptop was password protected, but he knew Emma had used the same password for everything. Starlight 2024, her favorite constellation and the year she hoped to start college. The screen came to life, showing Emma's desktop, a photo of the three of them at the Grand Canyon last summer. Andrew, Lillian, and Emma, arms around each other, squinting into the sun. Happy, or so he'd thought. He began clicking through folders, not sure what he was looking for. Homework assignments, playlists, photos of Emma with her friends, normal teenage debris. Then he found a folder labeled Mom's Secret. Andrew hesitated, his finger hovering over the mouse. This felt like a violation, reading his dead daughter's private files. But something about the name made his stomach clench. He clicked. The folder contained screenshots, text messages, photos, and as Andrew began to read, his grief transformed into something darker and colder. The screenshots were from Lillian's phone, apparently captured when Emma had borrowed it. They showed text conversations between Lillian and someone saved in her contacts as M, hundreds of messages stretching back over a year. M, can't wait to see you tonight. Tell Andrew you're working late. Lillian, he never questions it. Too buried in his blueprints. M, your husband is a fool. When are you going to leave him? Lillian, soon. I promise. I just need to figure out the finances. Andrew's vision blurred. He kept reading, each message a knife between his ribs. The affair had been going on for at least 18 months. They met at hotels, at M's apartment, even at Andrew and Lillian's house when he was traveling for work. And Emma had known. There was a document file in the folder dated 3 weeks before Emma's death. Andrew opened it, and his daughter's voice spoke to him from beyond the grave. Dad, I don't know how to tell you this, so I'm writing it down in case I lose my nerve. Mom is cheating on you. With her colleague, Dr. Michael Lambert. I found out 6 months ago, and I haven't known what to do. I kept thinking she'd stop, that it was just a phase, but it's not. They're planning to be together. I heard her on the phone last week talking about divorce, about taking everything from you. I'm so sorry, Dad. I should have told you sooner. I was scared of breaking up our family, but we're already broken, aren't we? I'm going to tell you this weekend. Mom's going to that conference in Chicago, and I'm going to show you everything. I'm sorry I waited so long. I love you. You're the best dad anyone could ask for. Emma. Andrew sat back, the laptop screen blurring through his tears. Emma had known. She'd been planning to tell him. And that weekend, the conference weekend, was when Emma had died. She'd never gotten the chance to expose Lillian's betrayal. The grief that had been crushing Andrew for 10 days crystallized into something else. Something sharp and focused and burning. He picked up his phone and called Curtis. I need your help, Andrew said when his friend answered. And I need you to not ask questions until I'm ready to explain. Curtis was quiet for a moment. Whatever you need, brother. Can you get me a copy of Emma's autopsy report? Expedited. Andrew, what's going on? Please, Curtis. Can you do it? Curtis worked as a civil engineer for the county, which meant he had connections throughout the municipal system. If anyone could pull strings to get the autopsy report released early, it was him. I'll make some calls, Curtis said finally. But Andrew, whatever you're thinking. I'm not thinking anything yet, Andrew lied. I just need to know exactly what happened to my daughter. He hung up and looked back at the laptop. Dr. Michael Lambert. He opened a new browser window and started searching. Dr. Michael Lambert, MD, cardiologist at St. Mary's Medical Center. 42 years old. Divorced, no children. Graduated from Johns Hopkins, stellar reputation, published researcher in cardiac genetics. A cardiologist, specializing in hearts. In genetic cardiac conditions. Andrew's hands clenched into fists. The same condition that had supposedly killed Emma. It could be a coincidence. It probably was a coincidence. But Andrew had spent 20 years calculating probabilities and structural integrity. He knew when something didn't add up. And this didn't add up at all. Chapter 3. The Discovery. The autopsy report arrived 6 days later. Curtis delivered it personally, his face grave as he handed Andrew the sealed envelope. "I had to call in 3 favors to get this early," Curtis said. "The medical examiner's office is backed up for months." They were sitting in Andrew's hotel room, the sterile space lit by the weak afternoon sun filtering through thin curtains. Andrew held the envelope, afraid to open it, afraid of what it might contain. "There's something else," Curtis said. "I asked around discreetly. About Dr. Michael Lambert." Andrew's head snapped up. "What did you find?" "He treated Emma twice in the last 3 months. Both times were routine checkups after she complained about chest pains during gym class. He diagnosed her with a benign arrhythmia, prescribed low-dose beta blockers, said it was nothing to worry about." The hotel room suddenly felt very cold. Lillian never mentioned Emma seeing a cardiologist. According to the records, Lambert specifically noted that he'd explained the condition to the mother, and that the mother requested the visits be kept quiet to avoid alarming the father unnecessarily. Andrew's jaw clenched. "Emma didn't have a benign arrhythmia." "How do you know?" "Because she had a full physical 4 months ago for volleyball. I took her myself. They did an EKG. Everything was perfect." Curtis sat forward, his expression darkening. "Andrew, what are you thinking?" Instead of answering, Andrew opened the autopsy report. He skimmed past the preliminary information, Emma's height, weight, identifying marks, to the findings. Cause of death, acute cardiac arrest secondary to toxic levels of digoxin in the bloodstream. Andrew read the line 3 times. "Digoxin." Curtis pulled out his phone, typing quickly. "It's a cardiac medication, used to treat heart failure and arrhythmias. But in high doses." He stopped, his face going pale. "It's extremely dangerous. Can cause fatal cardiac events." Andrew kept reading. The toxicology screen had found digoxin levels 5 times the therapeutic range. Levels consistent with a massive overdose, either accidental or intentional. The report noted that Emma had been prescribed a low-dose beta blocker by Dr. Michael Lambert, but made no mention of digoxin. So where had the digoxin come from? Andrew set the report aside and picked up Emma's laptop again. He'd spent the last week combing through every file, every message, every scrap of digital footprint his daughter had left behind. He'd found her journal entries, her fears about her mother's affair, her love for her father. And he'd found text messages between Emma and her best friend, Faith Allen, from the day before Emma died. "Emma, I'm going to tell Dad tomorrow. I can't keep this secret anymore." "Faith, are you sure? Your mom's going to freak." "Emma, I don't care. Dad deserves to know. He deserves better than her." "Faith, what if she gets mad?" "Emma, what's she going to do, ground me? I'm doing the right thing." "Faith, you're braver than me, Em. Good luck." "Emma, thanks. I'm scared, but I have to do this." Those were the last messages Emma had ever sent. 6 hours later, she was dead. Andrew looked up at Curtis, and his friend must have seen something in his expression because he went very still. "Andrew, they killed her," Andrew said quietly. The words came out calm, factual, like he was explaining a structural calculation. Lillian and Lambert. Emma was going to expose their affair, so they killed her and made it look like a genetic heart defect. Curtis shook his head. "That's a serious accusation. You can't just." Lambert prescribed her medication she didn't need. Medication that gave him access to her, gave him credibility if questions were asked. Then they gave her digoxin, which Lillian would have easy access to through her pharmaceutical sales job. They overdosed her, killed her, and gambled that a surface-level autopsy would blame a genetic condition. Andrew's voice was still eerily calm, and it almost worked. "If that's true, we need to go to the police right now." "With what evidence?" Andrew cut him off. "Screenshots from a laptop? An affair? The autopsy shows digoxin poisoning, but there's no proof of where it came from. Lambert will say he never prescribed it. Lillian will say she never had access to it. It'll be our word against theirs, and they'll lawyer up before we finish explaining. Curtis ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. So what are you saying? Andrew stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Lillian was living in the house he'd paid for, sleeping in the bed he'd shared with her, spending time with the man who'd helped her murder their daughter. She was filing motions to take everything Andrew had left, playing the grieving mother, the wronged wife. And Dr. Michael Lambert was still seeing patients, still walking around free, still breathing when Emma couldn't. I'm saying the legal system isn't going to give us justice, Andrew said. So I'm going to get it myself. He turned back to Curtis, and his friend must have seen something in his eyes, something hard and cold and utterly committed, because he didn't argue. He just nodded slowly. What do you need me to do? Andrew smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I need you to help me destroy them. Completely. Both of them. Curtis was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood and extended his hand. For Emma. Andrew gripped it. For Emma. The war had begun. Chapter 4. The Truth Unfolds. Andrew spent the next 2 weeks building his case with the precision of an engineer designing a skyscraper. Every fact had to be verified, every assumption tested, every weakness identified and reinforced. He started with Michael Lambert. Curtis used his contacts to pull Lambert's financial records, not legally, but Andrew had stopped caring about legal the moment he'd read Emma's autopsy report. What they found was interesting. Lambert was drowning in debt. A bad divorce 3 years ago had cost him his house and half his retirement. He'd taken out a second mortgage on his condo, maxed out his credit cards, and was barely keeping his head above water despite his 6-figure salary. A man in financial trouble is a desperate man, Andrew noted, reviewing the spreadsheets in his hotel room. Desperate enough to do anything to secure a better future. You think Lillian promised him a payout? Curtis asked. I think Lillian promised him a life. A house, financial stability, a fresh start. All she had to do was divorce me and take me for everything I'm worth. Andrew pulled up another document, his own financial profile. Between his retirement accounts, home equity, and other assets, he was worth close to $2 million. Lillian gets half in the divorce, plus spousal support. More than enough to start a new life with her cardiologist boyfriend. But Emma was in the way. Andrew's jaw tightened. Emma was going to expose them. Ruin Lillian's carefully constructed victim narrative, destroy her chance at a favorable divorce settlement. So they removed the obstacle. He opened another file, phone records he'd obtained through less than legal means. The pattern was damning. In the 3 weeks before Emma's death, Lillian and Lambert had exchanged over 200 calls and texts. In the week after Emma died, the communication had virtually stopped. They're being careful now, Curtis observed. They know they can't appear connected. Which means they're worried about something, Andrew said. They're not as confident as they want to appear. His phone buzzed. A text from Faith Allen, Emma's best friend. Andrew had reached out to her a few days ago, explaining that he was trying to understand Emma's final days. Faith had agreed to meet with him. Faith, I can meet today after school. 3:30 at the coffee shop on Maple? Andrew texted back his confirmation. Faith had been devastated by Emma's death, and Andrew suspected she knew more than she'd told anyone. Teenage girls shared secrets. If Emma had confided anything about her plans to expose Lillian, Faith would know. Faith Allen was a small girl with dark hair and anxious eyes. She clutched a coffee cup like a lifeline when Andrew sat down across from her in the corner booth of the crowded cafe. Thank you for meeting me, Andrew said gently. He'd always liked Faith. She was a good friend to Emma, loyal and kind. I'm so sorry about Emma, Mr. Ellison, Faith said, her voice trembling. I miss her so much. I know you do. Andrew paused, choosing his words carefully. Faith, I need to ask you some difficult questions. About Emma's last days. Fear flickered across Faith's face. What kind of questions? Did Emma tell you about her mother's affair? The coffee cup nearly slipped from Faith's hands. She set it down quickly, her eyes wide. How did you? I found her files. The screenshots, the messages. I know she knew about Dr. Lambert. Andrew kept his voice calm, non-threatening. I need to know if she told you what she was planning to do. Faith's eyes filled with tears. She said she was going to tell you. That Sunday, when her mom was supposed to be at that conference. She had everything ready. All the proof, everything. She was so nervous, but she said you deserved to know the truth. Did she tell anyone else? No, just me. She made me promise not to say anything until after she talked to you. Faith wiped her eyes. Mr. Ellison, I've been so scared. Because Emma, the day before she died, she called me. She said something weird. Andrew leaned forward. What did she say? She said her mom gave her new vitamins. That her mom was being really nice all of a sudden, making her special smoothies in the morning, checking on her constantly. Emma thought maybe her mom suspected she knew about the affair. Faith's voice dropped to a whisper. She said, if anything happens to me, Faith, it wasn't an accident. The cafe seemed to tilt. Andrew gripped the edge of the table. She said that. Faith nodded, tears streaming down her face. I didn't know what she meant. I thought she was being dramatic. But then she died, and I've been so scared. Because what if she was right? What if it wasn't an accident? Andrew reached across the table and took Faith's hand. You did nothing wrong. Emma trusted you with something important, and now I need you to trust me. I need you to write down everything Emma told you, every detail you remember. Can you do that? Faith nodded, her grip tight on his hand. Are you going to find out what happened? Yes, Andrew said. I'm going to find out exactly what happened, and I'm going to make sure the people responsible pay for it. That night, Andrew sat in his hotel room with all the pieces spread out before him. Financial records, phone logs, Emma's messages, Faith's statement, the autopsy report. Separately, they were suggestive. Together, they painted a picture of premeditated murder. But it still wasn't enough for the police. Too circumstantial, too much obtained illegally. A good lawyer, and Lambert and Lillian would have excellent lawyers, would tear it apart. No, Andrew needed something more. Something definitive. Something that would destroy them not just legally, but personally, financially, socially. He needed them to confess, to turn on each other, to self-destruct. He needed a plan. And as he sat there in the dark, the outlines of that plan began to form. Chapter 5, Connecting the Dots. Andrew's plan required 3 things: leverage, timing, and an understanding of his enemy's psychology. He spent the next week gathering all 3. He started by hiring a private investigator, not through his lawyer, but independently. The investigator, a taciturn woman named Naomi Day, specialized in corporate espionage and had no qualms about operating in legal gray areas. I need full surveillance on 2 people, Andrew told her, providing photos and addresses for both Lillian and Michael Lambert. I need to know everywhere they go, everyone they talk to, everything they do. I need their patterns, their routines, their vulnerabilities. Naomi's fee was exorbitant, but Andrew didn't care. He liquidated a retirement account to pay her. Consequences be damned. Within a week, Naomi had compiled comprehensive dossiers on both targets. Lillian had moved a new friend into the house, ostensibly a female colleague from work named Tamara Oliver, but the surveillance photos showed otherwise. Late-night wine sessions, intimate body language, shared cigarettes on the back patio. Lillian was already moving on, already building her new life in the house Andrew had paid for. The colleague is a cover story, Naomi explained during their second meeting. In case anyone asks why she's not alone in that big house so soon after a divorce filing. But look at the credit card statements. She slid a file across the table. Expensive dinners, jewelry purchases, weekend trips to wine country. All on credit cards that were technically marital assets. She's spending like she's already won the settlement, Andrew observed. Gets better. Look at this. Naomi showed him a series of photos taken outside Lambert's condo. Lillian arriving late at night, leaving early in the morning. Despite their attempts at discretion, they couldn't stay away from each other. They're still together, Andrew said. Still meeting. Several times a week. They're careful, but not careful enough. Naomi pulled out another photo. This one showed Lillian and Lambert having an intense conversation outside a restaurant, their body language aggressive. This was 3 days ago. They argued for 20 minutes before she stormed off. Trouble in paradise? Looks like it. My lip reader analyzed the footage. Best she could make out, they were arguing about money and timing. Lambert wanted her to push the divorce through faster. She told him to be patient. Andrew filed that away. Impatience and greed. Both useful weaknesses. The information on Lambert was even more revealing. Beyond his financial troubles, Naomi had discovered that Lambert had been under investigation by the state medical board 2 years ago for overprescribing pain medication to patients. The investigation had been dropped due to insufficient evidence, but the complaint was still on file. He has a history of playing fast and loose with prescriptions, Naomi said. And look at this. Hospital inventory records show missing medication from the cardiac unit around the time Emma died. Small amounts of digoxin and other cardiac drugs, chalked up to inventory errors. Andrew's pulse quickened. Can you prove Lambert took them? Not definitively, but the timing is suspicious, and he had access. It was another piece of circumstantial evidence, but combined with everything else, it was forming a damning picture. Andrew's second step was to approach the divorce proceedings differently. He called Ramona Baker, his lawyer, and gave her new instructions. I want to fight, he said. I want to make this as difficult and drawn out as possible. Ramona sounded surprised. Andrew, I thought you wanted to just get it over with. I changed my mind. I want forensic accountants going through everything. I want to contest every asset, every claim. I want this divorce to take months. That's going to be expensive. I don't care. Do it. Ramona was quiet for a moment. What changed? I'm not letting her walk all over me anymore, Andrew said. She wants a war, she'll get one. The truth was more calculated. The longer the divorce dragged on, the more pressure it would put on Lillian and Lambert. The more desperate they would become. The more likely they were to make mistakes. Andrew's third step was the most dangerous. He reached out to Lambert directly. He crafted the email carefully, sending it from an anonymous account. Dr. Lambert, I know what you and Lillian did. I know about Emma. I have proof. If you want to avoid prison, we need to talk. Come alone to the parking lot behind Morrison Park tomorrow at 10 p.m. A friend. Andrew knew it was a risk. Lambert might go to the police, might warn Lillian, might ignore it entirely. But Andrew was banking on Lambert's guilt, his fear, his desperation. A guilty man would come to that meeting, and Andrew would be waiting. Chapter 6. The Plan. Morrison Park at 10 p.m. was deserted, the parking lot illuminated by a single flickering streetlight. Andrew sat in his truck, watching the entrance, Curtis beside him in the passenger seat. This is crazy, Curtis muttered. What if he brings the cops? He won't, Andrew said. He's too scared of what I might tell them. At 10:07, a silver BMW pulled into the lot. Michael Lambert emerged, looking around nervously. He was tall, fit, with the kind of polished good looks that probably made patients trust him implicitly. Andrew felt hate surge through him, but he forced it down. Emotion was a liability. He needed to stay cold. Andrew stepped out of the truck. Dr. Lambert. Lambert spun around, eyes wide. Who are you? Andrew Ellison, Emma's father. The color drained from Lambert's face. For a moment, Andrew thought the doctor might run. But then Lambert's expression hardened, shifting into defensive anger. I don't know what you think you know. I know you murdered my daughter, Andrew said flatly. You and Lillian. You gave Emma digoxin, overdosed her, made it look like a genetic heart defect. You killed her because she was going to expose your affair. Lambert took a step back. That's insane. I would never. Emma was my patient. I tried to help her. You prescribed her medication she didn't need. You had access to her medical records, her prescriptions, her trust. You used that access to kill her. Andrew pulled out a folder from his truck. I have her phone. I have the screenshots of your affair with Lillian. I have the autopsy report showing digoxin poisoning. I have witness statements from Emma's friend about the vitamins Lillian gave her before she died. Lambert was shaking now. You can't prove anything. I can prove enough to destroy you. To get your medical license revoked. To make you a suspect in a murder investigation. To ruin your life. Andrew stepped closer. But I'm willing to make a deal. That got Lambert's attention. What kind of deal? I need you to turn on Lillian. I need you to testify that she planned this, that she manipulated you, that you were coerced. You give me a full confession, recorded, and I'll make sure the prosecutors know you cooperated. I'll push for a reduced sentence. You're insane. But Lambert's voice wavered. The alternative is I go to the police tomorrow with everything I have. They'll investigate. They'll find the missing digoxin from the hospital. They'll find your financial records, your affair, your motive. And when they're done, you'll spend the rest of your life in prison. Lambert's face was ashen in the streetlight. Even if what you're saying is true, and I'm not admitting anything, why would I trust you? Because you don't have a choice, Andrew said. You're drowning in debt, desperate for a way out, and you let a manipulative woman convince you that murder was the answer. But Lillian doesn't love you, Lambert. She loves what you can give her, credibility during the divorce, someone to blame if things go wrong. You're a tool to her. And the moment you become a liability, she'll throw you away. Andrew could see the words landing, could see doubt creeping into Lambert's eyes. He pressed his advantage. She's already pulling away from you, isn't she? Fewer calls, more arguments about timing and money. She's making you wait while she secures the divorce settlement. And once she has the money, what do you think happens to you? Lambert's silence was answer enough. Work with me, Andrew said, and I'll make sure you survive this. Or stay loyal to Lillian and go down with her. Your choice. Lambert stood there for a long moment, the weight of his decisions crushing him. Finally, he shook his head. I need time to think. You have 24 hours, Andrew said. After that, I go to the police with what I have, and you're on your own. He turned and walked back to his truck, leaving Lambert standing alone in the parking lot. Curtis started the engine as Andrew climbed in. You think he'll flip? Curtis asked. Not yet, Andrew said. But he will. First, I need to give him a push. The next morning, Andrew set the second phase of his plan in motion. He called Lillian's divorce attorney and made an offer. He would agree to an expedited divorce settlement if Lillian dropped the claims for spousal support and split the assets 60-40 in his favor. The attorney called back 3 hours later, Lillian's fury practically vibrating through the phone line. My client rejects your insulting offer. We'll see you in court. Perfect. Andrew then leaked information to Naomi Day, who leaked it to strategic sources, a reporter friend who wrote for the local paper, a blogger who covered pharmaceutical industry scandals, a lawyer friend who worked in medical malpractice. The information was simple. Questions about Emma Ellison's death, anomalies in her treatment by Dr. Michael Lambert, suspicious prescriptions, and a possible conflict of interest between the doctor and the patient's mother. None of it was concrete enough for a formal investigation, but it was enough to start people asking questions. Enough to make Lambert sweat. Enough to make Lillian worry that her carefully constructed narrative was falling apart. Within 48 hours, the medical board had reopened their investigation into Lambert's prescribing practices. The hospital began an internal review of pharmacy inventory, and Lillian's divorce attorney was fielding questions about her relationship with Dr. Lambert. Andrew watched it all unfold from his hotel room, a chess master moving pieces on a board only he could see. And then he waited for Lambert to break. Chapter 7. Setting the Trap. The call came at 2 a.m. Andrew was awake. He rarely slept anymore when his burner phone rang. It's me. Lambert's voice was ragged, desperate. We need to talk. I'm listening. Not over the phone. In person. Tomorrow, same place. Andrew smiled in the darkness. I'll be there. Lambert looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 days. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands trembling as he stood in the Morrison Park parking lot. They're investigating me, he said without preamble. The medical board, the hospital, even the police called with questions about Emma's treatment. I warned you this would happen, Andrew said calmly. Did you do this? Lambert's voice rose. Did you start this? I didn't have to. You did this to yourself when you murdered a 16-year-old girl. Andrew kept his tone matter of fact. I just helped the truth start coming out. Lambert looked like he might be sick. Lillian told me. She said it would be easy. That no one would question it. That Emma's death would look natural and we could be together. There it was. The confession Andrew needed. Tell me everything, Andrew said. From the beginning. And Lambert, broken and terrified, did. The affair had started 18 months ago at a pharmaceutical conference where Lillian's company was promoting a new cardiac medication. Lambert had been attracted to her immediately. Beautiful, sophisticated, attentive. They'd started meeting secretly, and Lillian had painted a picture of an unhappy marriage to a neglectful husband. She said you ignored her, that you only cared about your work and your daughter, Lambert said. She said she was trapped, that she wanted out but couldn't afford to leave. So you offered her a way out. I fell in love with her. Lambert's voice cracked. I believed everything she told me. And when she said Emma had discovered the affair and was going to tell you, she was terrified. She said a divorce would be messy, that you'd fight for custody, that she'd lose everything. And you suggested killing Emma. No. Lambert's denial was vehement. God, no. Lillian came to me with the idea. She said Emma was making herself sick over it, having anxiety attacks, chest pains. She asked me to examine Emma, to prescribe something to help her calm down. The beta blockers. Yes. But then Lillian came back and said it wasn't working, that Emma was getting worse, threatening to expose us both. She said, Lambert's voice dropped to a whisper. She said Emma was unstable, that she was talking about hurting herself. Lillian suggested that maybe if Emma had an accident, a tragic medical event, everyone would believe it was natural. Genetic. Andrew's hands clenched into fists. And you agreed. She wore me down. For weeks, she kept saying how Emma was ruining both our lives, how we deserved to be happy, how it would be merciful to spare Emma from the pain of a messy divorce. Lambert was crying now. I was weak. I was stupid. I convinced myself it was the right thing. How did you do it? Lambert took a shuddering breath. Lillian had access to pharmaceutical samples through her job, including digoxin. I told her the dosage needed to cause a cardiac event in someone Emma's size. She crushed the pills into a smoothie she made Emma for breakfast. Within hours, Emma's heart stopped. The parking lot seemed to spin. Andrew had known, had suspected, but hearing the mechanical details of his daughter's murder was almost more than he could bear. And afterward, Andrew's voice was ice. Lillian called me, panicking. She said Emma collapsed, that she'd called 911. I met them at the hospital. I made sure I was visible, made sure people saw me as Emma's concerned cardiologist. When she was pronounced dead, I suggested the autopsy be limited to cardiac causes. I said a full toxicology screen wasn't necessary given her known heart condition. But they did one anyway. Yes. And when the preliminary results showed elevated cardiac markers, I thought we were safe. I didn't know they'd find the digoxin. Lambert looked at Andrew with desperate eyes. And then you started investigating. The medical board opened their review. The hospital started asking questions. And Lillian? What about Lillian? She's cutting me off. Won't answer my calls, won't meet with me. Her lawyer sent me a cease and desist letter saying I was harassing her. She's distancing herself, covering her tracks. Lambert's voice turned bitter. You were right. She used me. And now that things are falling apart, she's making sure I take the fall alone. Andrew pulled out his phone and stopped the recording app he'd had running since Lambert started talking. This conversation is being recorded. You just confessed to murdering my daughter. Lambert went white. You said you'd help me. I said I'd make sure the prosecutors knew you cooperated. And I will. Andrew's voice was hard. But first, you're going to help me finish this. You're going to help me trap Lillian. How? You're going to call her. Tell her you're panicking, that you're going to confess everything to the police unless she helps you. Demand to meet with her, somewhere public but quiet. And when she shows up, you're going to get her to confess. On tape, she'll never confess. She will if she thinks she can blame everything on you. She'll want a recording of her own, insurance in case you turn on her. Andrew stepped closer. You're going to give her that chance. And I'm going to be listening to every word. Lambert was shaking. And if I do this, you'll help me? I'll tell the prosecutors you cooperated. I'll testify that you showed remorse. That's all I can promise. Andrew's eyes were cold. But if you refuse, I'll turn this recording over to the police right now, and you'll go down for first-degree murder alone. Lambert closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were defeated. What do you want me to do? Andrew allowed himself a small, vicious smile. Exactly what I tell you. Chapter 8, The Collapse. The meeting was set for 2 days later at a coffee shop in the next town over, far enough from their usual haunts to be discreet, public enough to seem safe. Lambert called Lillian from Andrew's hotel room, with Andrew listening on speaker. We need to talk, Lambert said, his voice trembling exactly the right amount. In person. It's urgent. I told you not to contact me. Lillian's voice was cold. My lawyer will. They're building a murder case, Lillian. The medical board, the hospital, the police. They're connecting everything. Lambert injected real panic into his voice. I can't do this alone. I need you. There was a long pause. Then, where and when? Lambert gave her the details. Lillian agreed without another word and hung up. Andrew had 3 recording devices set up in advance. One on Lambert, one in the coffee shop ceiling, installed courtesy of Curtis's connections, and one in Andrew's own car where he'd be parked outside with a clear view through the shop's front windows. The day of the meeting, Andrew arrived 2 hours early. Curtis sat beside him, tense and silent. They watched Lambert arrive, watched him order coffee with shaking hands, watched him take a seat at a corner table. 15 minutes later, Lillian's Mercedes pulled into the lot. She looked immaculate as always. Designer sunglasses, perfectly styled blonde hair, expensive coat. The grieving mother, the wronged wife, the victim of her husband's genetic failures. She was playing a part so well Andrew wondered if she even remembered what was real anymore. She entered the coffee shop, spotted Lambert, and walked over. Even through the window, Andrew could see the tension in her posture, the way she kept her purse clutched tight to her body. In his ear, the wireless receiver crackled to life. Andrew had spliced into the coffee shop's security camera system, another illegal act he'd stopped caring about. And now he could hear every word through the shop's audio pickup. "This better be important," Lillian hissed as she sat down. "You were told not to contact me." "They found the digoxin, Lillian." Lambert's voice was desperate. "The autopsy report shows Emma died from digoxin poisoning. The hospital is investigating missing medication. It's only a matter of time before they connect it to me." Lillian's face didn't change, but Andrew saw her hand tighten on her purse. "Then you need to be very careful about what you say to them." "Careful?" Lambert's laugh was bitter. "They're going to arrest me. Unless you tell them the truth. Tell them it was your idea, that you—" "Lower your voice," Lillian snapped. She leaned forward. "Listen to me very carefully, Michael. I don't know what you're talking about. Emma died of a genetic heart condition. You were her doctor. If there are questions about her medication, that's your problem, not mine. You're the one who gave her the digoxin. You crushed it into her smoothie." "Did I?" Lillian's smile was razor-sharp. "Because I don't remember that. And unless you have proof. You told me to tell you the dosage. You said Emma was threatening to expose us. I said a lot of things. But I never told you to harm my daughter." Lillian's voice dripped poison. "If you gave Emma medication that killed her, that was your decision. Your crime, not mine." In the car, Andrew felt Curtis grip his arm. "She's going to throw him under the bus." "Keep listening," Andrew murmured. "Lambert was falling apart. You said we'd be together. You said once Andrew was out of the picture, once the divorce was final, we'd start over." "Plans change," Lillian said coolly. "And frankly, Michael, you're becoming a liability. An unstable doctor who may have accidentally killed a patient? That's not someone I want in my life." "Accidentally." Lambert's voice rose. "You planned this. You manipulated me into this." "Prove it." Lillian stood. "Oh wait, you can't. Because there's no evidence of anything except you prescribing medication to Emma and Emma ending up dead. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to keep your mouth shut. You're going to tell the investigators that Emma had a previously undiagnosed condition and you did your best to treat her. And you're going to stay far away from me. And if I don't—" Lillian leaned down, her voice dropping to a lethal whisper. "Then I'll tell them you became obsessed with me, that you stalked me, that you threatened to harm Emma if I didn't leave my husband. I'll destroy you so completely you'll wish you'd never met me." She straightened, collected her purse, and walked out without looking back. Andrew and Curtis watched her get in her car and drive away. Through the window, Lambert sat motionless, his face in his hands. Andrew stopped the recording and smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Got her," he said softly. Chapter 9, Justice. Andrew walked into the police station the next morning with Curtis, Naomi Day, and 3 lawyers. He carried a briefcase containing Emma's laptop with all her files, the autopsy report, Faith Allen's written statement, Lambert's recorded confession, the recording of Lillian's confession, financial records showing Lambert's debts and Lillian's assets, and a complete timeline of the affair and murder. The detective who met them, a sharp-eyed woman named Christina Floyd, listened to Andrew's presentation for 3 hours. When he finished, she sat back in her chair and let out a long breath. "This is the most comprehensive murder investigation I've ever seen from a civilian," she said. "Most of this evidence was obtained illegally." "I'm aware," Andrew said calmly, "but it points you in the right direction. You can now get proper warrants, conduct legal searches, and build a prosecutable case. I've just done the legwork for you." Detective Floyd looked at him for a long moment. "You could have brought this to us sooner." "I needed to be sure," Andrew said, "and I needed them both on record confessing." She nodded slowly. "All right, Mr. Ellison. We'll take it from here." The arrests happened simultaneously 2 days later. Michael Lambert was taken into custody at the hospital. Lillian was arrested at the house, Andrew's house, in front of the news cameras that Detective Floyd had strategically tipped off. Andrew watched the footage on the news that night from his hotel room. Lillian in handcuffs, screaming her innocence, her carefully constructed image crumbling in real time. Lambert looking hollow and defeated as they led him to the police car. The charges were first-degree murder for both of them. The prosecutor, armed with Andrew's evidence, was pursuing the death penalty. The trial was 6 months away, but it didn't matter. Lambert, faced with the mountain of evidence against him, took a plea deal, 25 years in exchange for testimony against Lillian. He confessed to everything on the stand during the preliminary hearing, painting Lillian as the mastermind who manipulated him into murder. Lillian's lawyer tried to fight it, but the evidence was overwhelming. The recordings, the financial motive, Emma's phone records, Faith's testimony. The jury deliberated for 3 hours before returning a guilty verdict on all counts. First-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, child endangerment resulting in death. Lillian was sentenced to life without parole. Andrew sat in the courtroom and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no triumph, no closure. Just emptiness. Because Emma was still gone. All the justice in the world wouldn't bring her back. 6 months after the trial, Andrew stood at Emma's grave with fresh flowers. The November wind was cold, but the sun was shining. Curtis stood beside him in comfortable silence. They'd been here every week since the trial ended, the two of them keeping Emma company, making sure she wasn't forgotten. The divorce was finalized yesterday, Andrew said quietly. The house reverts to me. All the assets. She gets nothing from prison. What are you going to do with the house? Andrew had thought about this. Sell it. Can't live there anymore. Too many memories, most of them corrupted now. He paused. I'm going to take the money and start a foundation in Emma's name. Scholarships for kids interested in engineering. Maybe some good can come from all this. Curtis nodded. She'd like that. They stood there for a while longer. Then Andrew reached out and touched Emma's headstone, cold granite under his fingers. I got them, sweetheart, he whispered. I got them for you. You can rest now. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying leaves in a gentle spiral. For just a moment, Andrew could almost imagine it was Emma's laughter, her voice saying, "Good job, Dad." He straightened, took a breath, and turned away from the grave. Curtis fell into step beside him as they walked back toward the parking lot. What now? Curtis asked. Andrew looked up at the blue sky, felt the sun on his face. For the first time in a year, he felt like he could breathe. Now, he said, I figure out how to live again. It wouldn't be easy. The grief would always be there, a permanent scar on his heart. But Emma had fought for the truth even in her last days. She'd been brave enough to stand up to her mother, to try to protect her father from betrayal. The least Andrew could do was honor that bravery by choosing to keep going. For Emma. Always for Emma. And as he drove away from the cemetery, Andrew allowed himself a small smile. Not of happiness. He wasn't sure he'd ever be truly happy again. But of purpose. Of survival. Of a father's love that not even death could diminish. Justice had been served. The guilty had been punished. Emma's truth had been told. And Andrew Ellison, broken but unbeaten, would make sure her memory lived on. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.